Behold Pripyat's river port. This was once an important transportation and communication hub for the city. The Pripyat River is a tributary of the Dnieper River in northern Ukraine. It's 724 kilometers long and has a catchment area of 97,000 square kilometers. The river flows through the exclusion zone of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Before the accident, it was used to transport goods and materials to and from the power plant. The river and its tributaries were heavily contaminated in the aftermath of the disaster. Its water was also used to cool the damaged reactors. The Pripyat River is home to a variety of fish, including catfish, bream, perch, pike, and roach. But fishing in the river and its tributaries is prohibited. Cafe Pripyat never reopened after the disaster at Chernobyl NPP. It remains abandoned and is now a popular tourist destination in Pripyat. This place is really one of a kind. It offers a unique and eerie glimpse into the past. It was a place of leisure and recreation in a youthful, forward-thinking community. Inside the cafe, ornate stained glass windows added a touch of elegance which was vastly different from the city's uniform architecture. It was known as The Dish and was a popular lakeshore hangout for young people in Pripyat. It was a hub of activity in the summer and hosted regular picnics and barbecues. In the winter, families would go ice skating on the frozen lake. On April 26, the government commission in Pripyat discussed using helicopters to scatter sand over the damaged reactor. This sand was gathered from near Cafe Pripyat. 150 young men with shovels, along with a truck filled with empty sacks, were dispatched for the operation. They worked tirelessly through the night, filling one sack after another until they were allowed to go home and rest. Statues of Lenin symbolize the ideology of communism and the leadership of the Soviet Union under Lenin and later under Joseph Stalin. They were often prominently placed in public spaces like town squares, parks, and on top of buildings. They were a reminder of the state's power and its officially mandated ideology. The statues were a form of political propaganda used to promote the ideals and values of the Communist Party and to maintain public support for the government. Soviet propaganda regarding the Chernobyl disaster portrayed the event as a minor accident caused by operator error. The official response downplayed the number of casualties and emphasized the Soviet state's quick response to the disaster. The goal was to minimize public panic and maintain trust in the government and the nuclear energy industry. The true scale of the disaster and its long-term impacts were suppressed and only became widely known after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The initial response from the Soviet government was to downplay the severity of the accident and conceal information about the disaster from the public. In fact, the authorities initially denied that any radioactive material had been released and claimed that only 2 people had died. Only after significant radioactive fallout was detected in nearby countries did the Soviet government admit that a major accident had taken place. The true scale of the disaster was suppressed for many years. Only after the collapse of the Soviet Union did more accurate information become widely known. To this day, there are those who refuse to believe Chernobyl was simply an accident. Some believe it was a Western plot to undermine the Soviet Union, or a failed experiment in military technology, or that extraterrestrial beings were involved. But the causes of the disaster have since been thoroughly investigated and widely documented. The consensus among experts is that the disaster was the result of a combination of design flaws in the reactor and operator error. Did you know that Pripyat was supposed to be an atomgrad, the Soviet city of the future powered by atomic energy, built for the elite engineers and artists? Atomograds or atomgrads were small industrial cities designed to serve the needs of commercial nuclear power plants. With populations ranging from 30,000 to 80,000, these cities emerged in the 1960s and 70s, mainly in the western parts of the Soviet Union. Almost all of them were located within agricultural landscapes and close to rivers, which Soviet engineers deemed suitable for building nuclear power plants. These sites were not situated far from industrial regions that required electric power, yet they had low population densities. Unlike secret, restricted nuclear facilities, Atomograds served the dual purpose of energy economy and political propaganda and were public projects. The residents of Atomograds were well educated and socially privileged compared to the average city dweller in the Soviet Union. These cities played a crucial propaganda role and represented a particular type and stage of socialist industrial city planning and social engineering. The most notable were the Chelyabinsk 40, now Ozersk, Sverdlovsk 44, now Zerchny, Krasnoyarsk 26, now Zheleznogorsk, and Tomsk 7, now Seversk. Nuclear cities heavily influenced their surroundings and provided opportunities for young people to escape the farm and learn about modern urban and industrial life. However, not everyone benefited equally in this nuclear utopia, as social stratification along linguistic and educational lines was common. This led to conflicts regarding wages, privileges, and access to housing. The Soviet atomic cities were considered a success in that they produced the fissile material necessary for the development and production of nuclear weapons. But the cost in health and safety of the workers and the local population, as well as the environmental impact, was significant. Additionally, the secrecy surrounding these cities created widespread distrust and concern. This is Pripyat Hospital 126. It used to be one of several medical facilities serving Pripyat and the neighboring areas. It was operational during the time of the Chernobyl disaster in 1986. The hospital was used to treat and evacuate the injured workers and nearby residents, but eventually became contaminated with radioactive materials. Today, the hospital is abandoned and serves as a reminder of the devastating effects of the Chernobyl disaster. On the night of the Chernobyl disaster, firemen and plant workers were taken to Pripyat Hospital 126 with radiation sickness and burns. They arrived still wearing their contaminated suits and were treated at the hospital. Despite being abandoned for over 30 years, their suits stored in the basement still emit dangerous levels of radiation. Pripyat Hospital 126 had 410 beds and several clinics in 5 interconnected, 6-story buildings. It was located on Druzhby-Narodov Street, near the cafe and dock, and took up most of Microdistrict 1 in Pripyat. A large sign on the roof read, "The health of the people is the wealth of the country."